Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something pretty fascinating, the power of concentration.
Ooh, interesting.
And get this, our main source material is a book from the early 1900s.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's called The Power of Concentration.
Okay.
So we'll be diving into the ideas from this book.
I'm intrigued already. You know, it's amazing how these older texts can still hold so much relevance.
Right, you'd think it'd be outdated, but no. This book, it delves into like how concentration shapes every part of our lives.
Really?
Everything. Yeah, it's not just about, work or productivity. It gets into our habits, our relationships, even, get this, achieving our dreams.
Our dreams, huh? That's powerful.
It is. And one of the core ideas in this book is something they call the two natures.
To nature.
Yeah, like two sides within each of us that are constantly kind of battling it out.
Oh, I see. Like a good and bad angel on our shoulders, sort of.
Exactly. One side pushes us to grow, to
Yep.
strive for more, connect with like a bigger purpose.
Right.
But then the other side, it pulls us towards those instant gratification things, those fears and doubts that hold us back.
Oh, I know those all too well. It's like a constant tug of war.
It is. And the book basically says that concentration is the key to making sure the good side, if you will, wins out.
Interesting. So it's not about like ignoring the negative stuff completely.
No. It's more about recognizing it's there, but consciously choosing to focus our energy on the thoughts and actions that align with our goals.
Okay, so like actively shifting our focus to the positive, even when the negative is screaming at us.
Exactly. And the book makes this really bold claim. It says that even one single act of willpower, of really choosing, can impact our whole lives.
Wow, one decision changing everything.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
They actually have a story about a farmer's wife who is typically like seen as pretty frail.
Oh.
But then a fire breaks out on the farm. And she, I kid you not, she displays this incredible strength. She's moving heavy objects. She saves her family, all their belongings. It's amazing.
Wow. It's like she tapped into some hidden reserve of strength.
That's exactly what the book says. They attribute it to her will to do.
Will to do.
Yeah, like in that moment of crisis, her determination, that will to act, it completely overrode her usual limitations.
That's a pretty powerful example. So are they saying we all have this untapped potential just waiting to be unlocked?
That's the gist of it. They really emphasize that concentration is the foundation of a strong mind. Like going to the gym, but for your brain.
Mental fitness. I like that.
Right. And without it, without concentration, we're basically scattering our energy, making it way harder to reach our potential.
I can see that, especially in today's world, right? So many distractions.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like our attention is pulled in a million directions.
Exactly. We're constantly bombarded with notifications, social media, just this never-ending stream of information. It's easy to get overwhelmed.
And the book, it really highlights how detrimental that can be. It's like this scattered way of living. It drains our energy. We end up just spinning our wheels and not really getting anywhere.
Yeah. The power of concentration talks about this wasted energy. Like when we're not focused, that energy is just dissipating. It's not being used effectively.
Right. Instead of like channeling it towards a goal, we're just leaking it all over the place.
It's like trying to water a garden with a leaky hose. You're losing more water than you're actually delivering to the plants.
Perfect analogy.
Yes.
But here's the thing that really surprised me about this book. To develop concentration, they emphasize, get this, physical exercises.
Physical exercises.
Oh, really? I know, right? At times it felt more like a fitness manual.
That's fascinating. So how do they connect the physical with the mental in terms of focus?
Well, they view the mind and body as totally interconnected. So the idea is, by mastering control over our physical movements, over our bodies, we achieve greater mental stability and focus.
Interesting. It's like physical discipline paving the way for mental discipline.
That's it. Now, some of these exercises are, well, a bit unusual.
Oh, give me an example.
Okay, so one of them is you focus intensely on the movement of your fingers.
Your fingers.
Yeah. You extend each finger, like really slowly and deliberately. You pay close attention to all the sensations in your hand, the muscles.
I can see how that would require a lot of focus.
Right. It's like deceptively simple, but it's all about training that ability to stay present. Another way is trying to sit perfectly still for like extended periods of time.
Oh, wow. No fidgeting allowed.
Nope. No fidgeting, no involuntary movements. Sounds easy, but I bet it's harder than you think.
Oh, I know. I'm a terrible fidgeter.
Me too. But you see, it's about building that mental stamina, that ability to resist those urges that would normally distract us. Like reaching for our phone or switching to a different task.
Right, right. It's training us to stay focused even when things get a little boring, a little uncomfortable. We're proving to ourselves, hey, we're in charge here.
Exactly. And it all ties back to the power of concentration. It's about using that power not just to achieve our goals, but also to overcome, to break bad habits.
Oh, that's interesting because habits, they feel so automatic, so ingrained. How does concentration even play a role in that?
Well, the book sees habits as these deep-rooted patterns in our thinking and behavior,
Hmm.
like they're etched into our minds.
Okay, I'm following.
To break them, we need a really powerful force, and that's where concentration comes in.
So it's not just about trying to suppress the bad habit, but actually replacing it with something else.
You got it. The book says you identify the opposite of the bad habit, and then you consciously, repeatedly do that new behavior until it becomes the default.
So it's like rewiring our brains, creating new pathways, but they do acknowledge it's a tough battle.
Oh, yeah. They compare a bad habit to a parasite that needs to be, and I quote, violently separated and crushed.
Wow, that's pretty intense imagery.
It is. But I think it highlights, how much commitment and willpower we actually need to really break those deeply ingrained patterns.
And that's where the concentration comes in, right? It gives us that mental strength to fight those urges, to stay focused on the new behavior, to persevere even when it's hard.
Exactly. We're essentially becoming like guardians of our own minds, making sure our thoughts and actions are aligned with the habits we want to build. It's about taking ownership.
That's powerful stuff. And speaking of power, you mentioned earlier something about concentrated mental demand.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's one of the more advanced applications of concentration that we'll be diving into later. It's all about using the power of our minds to, well, kind of shape our reality.
Shape our reality. That sounds almost mystical.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the book is very clear. It's not just wishful thinking. It's about combining mental focus with action, with aligning our inner world, our thoughts, beliefs, and desires with our goals in the real world.
So it's about believing we can achieve those goals, but then also taking the steps to make them happen.
Exactly. The book talks about visualizing the outcome, holding that image in your mind, like vividly, until it materializes.
Okay, so see it, believe it, and then do it.
That's it in a nutshell. And they have all these examples of people who, they say, achieved success using this concentrated mental demand.
Oh, really? Like what kinds of examples?
Well, one they talk about is a bank messenger, ordinary guy, but he had this burning desire to become, get this, the bank's president.
Wow, ambitious.
Right. And the book says he achieved it through sheer focus. He visualized himself in that position, embraced the responsibilities, and every decision he made was in service of that vision.
So he basically willed his way to the top. That's pretty incredible. And they're saying this principle applies to other areas of life too, like achieving financial success.
Oh, absolutely. They dedicate a whole section to that. Basically, they advocate for, like, immersing yourself in positive thoughts about wealth, surrounding yourself with successful people, and cultivating a mindset of abundance.
Okay, so mindset is key, but they're not saying just sit around and think about money.
No, not at all. It's about action, too. They talk about setting clear goals, making decisive choices, and being persistent, not giving up until you achieve those objectives. It's like a two-pronged approach.
Makes sense. You've got to have the inner belief and the outward action working together.
Right. And they actually tell this funny story about a prosperity lecturer. The irony is this guy was teaching people how to be wealthy,
Okay.
but he himself was living in like a state of lack. His surroundings, his whole life contradicted the message he was preaching.
Oh, wow. So like he hadn't actually applied his own teachings to his own life.
Exactly. The book uses that story to illustrate the importance of walking the talk, not just talking the talk. Our thoughts, actions, and even our environment, they all need to be in alignment with our goals.
I see. It's about creating that congruence, making sure everything is working together.
Precisely. And one of the key strategies they emphasize is cultivating an attitude of expecting great things,
Yeah.
both from yourself and from others, like setting that bar high and then rising to meet it.
So it's about having high standards, but also the belief that we can achieve them.
Exactly. They argue that this attitude alone can really inspire people to tap into their potential and achieve more than they ever thought possible. But I could see how that could be misinterpreted.
Oh, how so?
Well, it could come across as demanding perfection or setting unrealistic expectations, right?
Right. But I think the key here is that they're not advocating for perfectionism. It's more about fostering a mindset of growth, of possibility, encouraging continuous improvement, and creating an environment where people feel empowered to do their best work.
That's a much better way to put it. It's about striving for excellence, not perfection.
Mm.
And through that journey, that's how we achieve true success.
Absolutely. And speaking of the journey, the power of concentration makes it very clear that success isn't about like these sudden bursts of effort. It's about steady, consistent action.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. They say those sporadic spurts of energy, they're not sustainable. They lead to burnout and make it hard to maintain momentum over time.
Right. So it's more about finding that rhythm, that sustainable pace that allows us to make progress without burning ourselves out.
Right. And another key point they make is the importance of trusting our own judgment, making decisions based on what we believe is right.
That's huge, isn't it? Self-trust.
It is. They argue that when we're constantly doubting ourselves, second-guessing our decisions, we end up paralyzed.
Oh, I know that feeling. It's like getting stuck in this mental loop going back and forth, but never actually moving forward.
Exactly. So by cultivating self-trust, developing that courage to make decisions, and also to learn from our mistakes, that's how we gain confidence and momentum.
It's about embracing the journey, knowing there will be bumps along the way, but trusting that we can handle them.
That's a great way to put it. And I think that's one of the key takeaways from the power of concentration. It's like, it's equipping us with these mental tools.
Mental tools?
Yeah. To not just survive, but actually thrive in a world that can feel incredibly demanding and overwhelming. And I'm particularly interested in the practical strategies they offer for making those tough decisions, for building courage.
Me too. Because let's face it, making confident decisions and facing our fears, that's essential for any kind of success, right?
Absolutely. And that's exactly where we'll pick up after a quick break. So yeah, those practical strategies for decision-making and building courage, the power of concentration has some really insightful things to say about those.
It's funny because those are the parts that really jumped out at me too. Like those just seem absolutely essential for pretty much any kind of success, making those decisions and actually facing those fears.
They really are. And the book, it makes this really interesting point. It says, courage isn't the absence of fear.
Right.
It's the willingness to act in spite of it. It suggests that fear, a lot of times it's based on illusions. Things that we think are threats, but aren't actually dangerous.
It's like those shadows that look huge and scary in the dark.
Yeah.
And then you turn on the light and they're nothing.
Exactly. And the book, it encourages us to really examine our fears, to bring them out into the open, because often what we find is they're not nearly as scary as we've built them up to be in our minds.
Right. So it's not about pretending we're not afraid, but more about acknowledging it and then choosing to move forward anyway. Which, that takes courage, right? Like, where does that come from?
Well, the book talks about a few strategies. One of them is taking action, even small actions, because the idea is courage is kind of like a muscle.
Ah, I see. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Exactly. So each time we face a fear and we push past it, we build our confidence and we expand that comfort zone a little bit.
It's kind of like that fake it till you make it idea, but for bravery.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. But the book isn't saying to be reckless or anything or take unnecessary risks. It's about calculated risks, right? Taking those small steps outside that comfort zone gradually and then proving to ourselves that, hey, we can handle those challenges.
And all that ties back into concentration, doesn't it? Because it's about focusing our mental energy on what we want to achieve, on those positive possibilities, instead of getting, all bogged down by the fear.
Exactly. It's about directing that mental energy where we want it to go. And another thing the book suggests, it's about surrounding ourselves with courageous people, because the idea is you kind of absorb the energy and mindset of the people you spend the most time with.
Oh, that makes sense. So it's like creating that environment where courage can actually flourish.
Yeah.
But how do you find those people, especially if, maybe you don't have a lot of courageous role models in your immediate circle?
Well, the book has some interesting suggestions. One of them is reading biographies, biographies of courageous people.
Okay.
Because by kind of immersing yourself in those stories, you gain a deeper understanding of what courage actually looks like in action, right? And how those people cultivated it.
So it's like you're getting a glimpse behind the scenes, seeing how they face their challenges, how they overcame them.
Exactly. But they don't have to be, you know, super famous people or historical figures or anything.
Oh, good. Because sometimes I have a hard time relating to those larger-than-life personalities.
Right. And the book actually emphasizes finding stories of everyday courage.
Yeah, okay.
You know, ordinary people who have faced adversity and come out stronger on the other side. Because those stories, they can be incredibly relatable, incredibly inspiring. You know, they show that courage isn't reserved for just a select few. It's something we all have access to.
Right. It makes it seem a lot more attainable. So reading those stories is one way. Are there other ways to kind of tap into that wellspring of courage?
Yeah, definitely. They also suggest watching movies or documentaries that depict acts of courage.
Okay.
You know, because those stories, they can evoke powerful emotions, right? They can really inspire us to act with bravery in our own lives.
So not just like action movies, but any stories that really resonate with us that show what courage can look like.
Exactly. And I think those stories can help us expand our definition of courage too, you know, to see that it doesn't always have to be these grand gestures. A lot of times it's those quieter acts of bravery that we perform in our daily lives.
Right. And those are the ones we can actually see ourselves doing.
Exactly. And the book also suggests attending like events or workshops that focus on courage and resilience because it's about immersing yourself in that community of like-minded people, you know, people who are also on a journey of personal growth.
Oh, so finding your tribe, basically.
Right.
People who understand what you're going through, who can offer support and encouragement.
Exactly. It can be incredibly empowering to connect with others who are working on similar challenges, right? And who can offer a fresh perspective.
I could see that.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think even with support, we need a little extra guidance.
Yeah.
You know, like what does the book say about finding mentors, people who can actually help us navigate this whole journey?
Yeah, that's a great point. And the power of concentration does talk about seeking out mentors or coaches because having that person who's walked a similar path, who understands the challenges and who can offer guidance, that can make a huge difference.
It's like having a personal trainer, but for your courage.
I like that. But finding the right mentor, that can feel really daunting, you know? Like, where do you even begin?
Yeah.
Well, the book recommends, like, networking with people in your field, attending conferences, workshops, and just being open to those serendipitous connections, you know, because a lot of times those are the ones that lead to mentorship opportunities.
So it's about putting yourself out there and seeing what happens.
Exactly. And, you know, even if there's someone you admire, maybe an author or a thought leader that you follow online,
Okay.
the book suggests reaching out to them, expressing your appreciation for their work and just asking, you know, asking about their mentorship journey, because you might be surprised how willing people are to share their experience or offer some guidance.
So it's about being bold, taking that initiative.
Exactly. Recognizing that sometimes you have to ask for the support you need. But I know that can feel scary, putting yourself out there like that.
It can. What if you don't know where to find those inspiring people, those groups?
Well, the book also suggests exploring online communities and forums, you know, where people share their mentorship experiences, because those platforms can connect you with a whole global network of mentors and resources.
Oh, wow. So it's like a digital directory for finding mentors.
Kind of, yeah. But I know some people might feel like, well, those online relationships, maybe they lack the depth of in-person connections.
Yeah, I could see that.
And the book acknowledges that. But it also emphasizes that mentorship can take many forms, right?
Okay.
So they encourage people to explore, you know, those non-traditional forms of mentorship, like peer mentorship, where people at a similar stage in their journey, they support each other.
Oh, interesting.
Or even reverse mentorship.
Reverse mentorship.
Yeah, where you seek guidance from someone younger or maybe less experienced, but who has expertise in a particular area that you want to learn about.
Oh, I like that. So it's not limited to that traditional, older, wiser mentor figure.
Exactly. It's about finding those connections that resonate with you and that offer the support that you need. But to make the most of those relationships, the book really emphasizes the importance of clarity and communication.
Oh, okay.
So being upfront about what your goals are for the mentorship, what your needs are, making sure there's a good fit.
So it's almost like creating a mentorship agreement.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Yeah.
Setting those expectations up front, making sure everyone's on the same page. And they also encourage, being proactive in the mentorship. So coming to
Was-
meetings prepared with questions, with ideas, a willingness to learn. It's about actively engaging in the process.
Right. So you're not just passively receiving information. You're showing up ready to play the game.
Exactly. But I think one of the biggest challenges with mentorship is receiving feedback.
Mm.
Especially when it's not all positive.
Yeah, that can be tough.
It can. And the book, it acknowledges that. It encourages, trying to be open to feedback, even when it's hard to hear, because they suggest viewing feedback as an opportunity for growth, a chance to learn and improve.
Okay. But how do you make sure you're receiving feedback constructively? And not just letting it bruise your ego, because sometimes feedback can feel more like criticism.
Right. And that's where the book suggests approaching it with a growth mindset.
Growth mindset.
Yeah, recognizing that the feedback, it's not about attacking your worth, it's about helping you become more effective. So they encourage active listening, asking clarifying questions, making sure you really understand the feedback, and then taking some time to reflect on it before you react.
So it's about being present, listening, and then processing it before you jump into action.
Exactly. And it's crucial to remember that feedback is a gift. Even when it's, wrapped in tough love.
Right.
It's about trusting that the person giving the feedback, they have your best interests at heart.
Okay. That reframing is helpful. Seeing it as a tool, not an attack.
Right. But the book also emphasizes it's important to be kind to yourself throughout the process.
Oh, yeah. Self-compassion.
Exactly. Because growth takes time, and it's important to celebrate your wins along the way. Not just focus on the areas where you need to improve.
So being your own best friend, offering yourself that same support and kindness you'd give to a friend who's struggling.
Exactly. And they suggest some specific practices for cultivating that self-compassion. Things like mindfulness.
Right.
Paying attention to your thoughts and feelings without judgment. It's about becoming a gentle observer of your inner world.
Okay. So being present with those feelings, but not beating yourself up over them.
Right. And also engaging in activities that nourish your mind, your body, your soul.
So basically taking care of yourself, making time for the things that bring you joy.
Exactly. Because the book argues that when we take care of ourselves, we're better able to show up for others, and to pursue our goals with more energy and enthusiasm.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to fill yourself up first. So what are some ways to find those nourishing activities?
Well, they encourage exploring different hobbies, different interests, trying new things, and just seeing what sparks your curiosity. Approaching life with a sense of playfulness, of adventure.
It's like being an explorer, but of your own inner world.
I like that. And they also suggest reconnecting with activities you enjoyed as a child. Tapping into that sense of wonder and joy that we often lose as adults.
Oh, I love that. Remembering what brought you joy when you were younger.
Yeah. And then making time for those passions, scheduling them into your week like any other important appointment. Because it's about making your well-being a priority.
Okay, that's good practical advice, making it non-negotiable. But what about those days when your passions feel more like burdens? Those days where you just don't feel like showing up.
Yeah, I think we all have those days. And the book acknowledges that. It suggests, surrounding yourself with people who support your passions,
Okay.
who encourage you to pursue your dreams, and who offer a listening ear when you need it most.
So it's like having your own personal cheerleading squad,
Yeah.
a group of people who believe in you and your dreams.
Right.
How do you find those people, though? Especially if you're surrounded by people who maybe don't quite get your passions.
Well, they suggest joining groups or communities that are centered around those passions, attending events, workshops related to your interests, and just putting yourself out there, to connect with those like-minded individuals.
So finding your tribe.
Exactly. And for those relationships to thrive, for them to be mutually supportive, the book really emphasizes the importance of being a good friend, offering support, encouragement to those in your network. It's about reciprocity, the give and take of healthy relationships.
Right. So it's not just about taking, it's about contributing, about being there for others.
Exactly. And just staying in touch, making an effort to connect with people in your network, even if it's, just a quick phone call or an email.
So those little things that show people you care.
Right, because even small gestures can make a big difference.
Okay. But what about when conflicts arise? I mean,
Yeah.
those can be hard to navigate, even in even in the most supportive relationships.
Absolutely. And that's where the power of concentration, it suggests approaching those conflicts with an attitude of understanding.
Hmm.
It encourages active listening, trying to see the other person's perspective, and communicating your own needs and feelings clearly and respectfully.
So it's like finding that balance between assertive communication, but also being compassionate and understanding.
Exactly. And being willing to forgive,
Yeah.
to let go of the anger, the resentment, and to choose to move forward.
Because forgiveness can be so powerful
Mm.
for healing those rifts and making space for that reconciliation.
It really is. And the book reminds us that conflict is a natural part of any relationship. So it's about navigating those challenges gracefully, learning from them, and emerging stronger on the other side.
Okay, it's like we're piecing together this blueprint for a more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
A more successful life.
Right.
One that's grounded in self-awareness, in focused intention, and strong supportive relationship.
Exactly. And it all goes back to that core principle, right, of concentration,
Right.
learning to harness the power of our minds.
This has been so eye-opening. I'm already feeling inspired to apply these ideas.
That's fantastic to hear. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. The key is to be patient with yourself, keep practicing, and celebrate those wins along the way.
Okay. It is a journey, isn't it? And the power of concentration,
Yeah.
it really gives you that comprehensive roadmap. It's like it was written for the modern world,
Yeah.
even though it's, over 100 years old.
It really is remarkable how relevant these principles remain, especially the emphasis on those healthy relationships. And they offer a lot of different strategies for nurturing those connections and navigating those inevitable bumps that come up along the way.
Yeah. And I'm curious to dive a little deeper into those relationship building strategies. What else does the book recommend?
Well, one of the key strategies they emphasize is practicing active appreciation.
Active appreciation.
Yeah, it's about, expressing gratitude for the people in your life, acknowledging their contributions, letting them know how much you value them.
So it's about shining a light on the good. Noticing those things we often take for granted and making a point of expressing that appreciation.
Exactly. The book suggests that appreciation, it's like this powerful nutrient. It really strengthens the bonds of any relationship.
It's like watering the plants,
Mhm.
making sure those connections get the nourishment they need to grow. What other strategies do they talk about?
Well, they also highlight the importance of spending quality time together, engaging in activities that strengthen those bonds, that create those shared memories. It's about making those connections a priority.
Right. So it's like making deposits in the relationship bank.
Mm.
Investing in the connections that really matter most. But what does quality time actually look like? Does it have to be these, grand gestures or elaborate outings?
Not at all. The book suggests that even small gestures can go a long way. Things like sharing a meal, taking a walk together, or just sitting down for a conversation. Those simple acts of connection, they can make a big difference.
So it's more about the intention behind it. About being present, being engaged in those moments, and just savoring the connection.
Exactly. And being reliable, trustworthy, being
Mhm.
there for each other through thick and thin. Being that steady presence, that person that others can count on.
Right. It all comes back to building that trust, which I guess the book identifies as the foundation of any strong relationship.
Exactly. Trust is essential. It's the bedrock.
Okay, so trust, appreciation, quality time. What else does the book say about fostering those healthy relationships?
Well, they also emphasize respecting each other's boundaries, recognizing that we're all individuals with our own needs and limits.
Right. So giving each other space, honoring that individuality, understanding that you don't have to be joined at the hip to have a strong connection.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between closeness and independence.
This is also helpful. I feel like we often overlook these seemingly simple but crucial aspects.
It's true. And I think the power of concentration, it reminds us that building strong relationships, it's a process, it's a journey that requires effort, intentionality, but the rewards, as we know, are immeasurable.
Absolutely. Those strong relationships,
Yeah.
they enrich our lives in countless ways. They provide support, companionship, love, a sense of belonging.
And they can inspire us to grow, to become, better versions of ourselves.
Okay, before we wrap up, I want to go back to that fascinating idea you mentioned earlier about cosmic consciousness.
Hmm.
The book suggests that through deep concentration, we can actually access this higher level of awareness, like a deeper connection with the universe.
Yes. And it's a concept that, aligns with a lot of spiritual traditions, this idea that there's this wellspring of wisdom and insight within each of us.
Like a whole other dimension of reality waiting to be explored. How do we access that, though? What does the book say?
Well, they're a little vague on the specifics, but they emphasize the importance of persistent practice. The idea is that by cultivating your concentration to a point where you can quiet the mind, you can tap into this deeper level of awareness.
So it's about training the mind to be still,
Mhm.
to transcend that chatter of our thoughts and connect with something larger than ourselves.
Exactly.
Right.
And they suggest that, this state of awareness can lead to profound insights, a sense of interconnectedness, and a deeper understanding of our place in the universe.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. It definitely gives us something to aspire to.
It does. And perhaps the journey itself is just as valuable as the destination. It's about the practice, the dedication, and that willingness to really explore the depths of our own minds.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and a fitting reminder as we wrap up our exploration of the power of concentration. We've covered so much ground, from understanding those two natures within us to harnessing the power of the concentrated mental demand, from cultivating courage to building stronger relationships. It's been quite a journey.
It has, and while the book offers so much wisdom, I think the key takeaway, it's really simple. Concentration is a skill that can be developed, and the benefits, they extend to every aspect of our lives.
Absolutely. And like any skill, it takes practice, it takes patience,
Yeah.
and it takes a willingness to embrace the journey.
And who knows what we might discover along the way, right?
Okay, before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
Okay.
Pick one concentration exercise from the power of concentration and commit to practicing it for a week.
Yeah.
Notice how it impacts your focus, your willpower, your overall sense of well-being.
I love that challenge. It's about
Yeah.
it's about bringing these concepts to life, experiencing that power firsthand.
Right. And remember, concentration, it's like a muscle.
Yeah.
The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
And the rewards are definitely worth the effort.
Oh, so are you ready to unleash your inner concentration ninja?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Until next time, keep those minds sharp and keep diving deep.
Happy concentrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it really does feel like this book was written for us today, even though, like you said, it's over a century old.
It really is. And those principles about relationships, super relevant. All those different strategies they lay out for, actually nurturing those connections and dealing with the inevitable issues that come up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'd love to hear more about those. What else do they suggest?
Well, one thing they really emphasize is practicing what they call active appreciation.
Active appreciation.
Yeah, basically it's about going out of your way to express gratitude for the people in your life. Acknowledging what they do, letting them know you value them.
So it's like shining a light on all the good stuff, noticing the things we might take for granted, and then, actually saying something about it.
Exactly. They say appreciation is like a nutrient, It strengthens those bonds.
That's like watering a plant.
Yeah.
You got to give those relationships what they need to grow. What other strategies do they talk about?
Spending quality time together is a big one. Doing things that build those bonds, that create memories, making those connections a priority, basically.
Right, like making deposits in the relationship bank, investing in what matters. But what does that even look like, Quality time. Does that have to be some big fancy thing?
No, not at all. They actually suggest that even those small gestures can go a long way. Things like having dinner together, going for a walk, just sitting down to talk. Those simple things can make a difference.
It's about being present in those moments.
Right.
Just savoring the connection.
Exactly. And of course, being reliable, being trustworthy,
Yeah.
Being there for each other when things get tough, like being that solid person that others can depend on.
Right, which all builds that trust, which I guess they say is like the most important thing for a strong relationship.
It is. It's foundational.
Okay, so trust, appreciation, quality time, Anything else they mention about having those good, healthy relationships?
Respecting boundaries, realizing that we're all individuals, we've got our own needs and limits.
Right. So giving each other space, honoring that we're different. It's not like you have to be, attached at the hip to have a strong bond.
Right. It's that balance between like being close and also having that independence.
This is all really good stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like those are things we often forget about.
Yeah.
They seem simple, but they're so important.
They are. And the power of concentration, it really emphasizes that point, that this is a constant process. It takes effort, it takes work to build those strong connections. But obviously the rewards are huge.
Oh, yeah, no question. Those strong relationships, they add so much to our lives. The support, the companionship, the love, that sense of belonging.
And they can even push us to grow, to become better people.
Okay, before we finish up this awesome deep dive, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That whole idea of cosmic consciousness. The book talks about that, right? Like how through deep concentration, we can tap into this higher awareness, a deeper connection with everything.
Yes. And it's really interesting because it lines up with, a lot of different spiritual traditions. That idea that there's this like wellspring of wisdom inside each of us.
Like there's this whole other level of reality just waiting to be discovered. But how do you actually get there? What does the book say?
Well, they're kind of vague about the specifics, but they really stress the importance of practice. The idea is you got to train your concentration so much that you can actually quiet your mind. And that's when you can tap into this deeper awareness.
So it's like learning to be still, to quiet all that mental chatter, and then connect with something bigger.
Exactly. And they suggest this state of awareness can lead to all sorts of things, profound insights, feeling connected to everything, a deeper understanding of where we fit in the universe.
Wow, that's pretty wild. Definitely something to strive for.
It is. And maybe the journey itself is just as important as reaching that destination, the practice, the commitment, that willingness to really dive deep into our own minds.
That's a really good way to put it. And a good note to end on as we wrap up our exploration of the power of concentration. I mean, we've covered so much. We talked about those two natures inside us, about harnessing that concentrated mental demand. We talked about finding courage, building those strong relationships. It's been quite a deep dive.
It really has. And even though the book has so much to offer, I think the main takeaway is pretty straightforward. Concentration. It's a skill. We can learn it, we can develop it. And the benefits are, they touch every part of our lives.
Totally agree. And like any skill, it takes work, it takes patience, and it takes that willingness to just go for it, embrace the process.
And you never know what you might find along the way.
Okay, before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
All right, I like it.
Pick one concentration exercise from the book, just one, and try it for a week. See how it affects you, your focus, your willpower, just your overall well-being.
That's a great challenge. It's all about putting these ideas into practice, seeing what happens.
Right. And remember, that concentration, it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
And it's worth it.
All right, everyone. Until next time, stay sharp and keep diving deep.
Happy concentrating.